Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ani Munira Muhammad from qualitative.com. In this short video, I wish to share with you some of the tips for conducting an interview for qualitative research. Now, I have a list of subscribers who write to me that they are actually conducting interviews as one of their methods of data collection, and they use this interview as their instrument with the aim to get rich and thick description. Okay, so they would ask me, do I have any tips for conducting an interview? Now, their interviews could be face to face, their interviews could be by email, by phone, by web conferencing, or focus groups, whereby the interviews is conducted within a group. So, I have put together some of my best tips that I hope will be able to help you to conduct interviews for your own qualitative research. Now, what is my first advice? I always advise my students that they make sure that they introduce yourself and explain the aim of the interview to the interviewee. Now, this is very important so that the interview will not have any misunderstanding what is the purpose that we wish to meet them. Please observe the academic ethics by making sure that the interviewee is fully aware of the purpose of the research. If we tell them upfront this is the purpose of the research, then they will be able to facilitate us better because they will know what are the scope of your research. At the same time, before you go and conduct that interview, it is very important that you devise your questions so that the questions will help to answer your research question. And at the same time, you also need to make sure that all the questions are relevant. Now, I always teach in my classes how to build interview questions based on your research questions. It is once you have a table that indicates these are my research questions, these are my interview questions, and these are my possible codes, for example, for analysis purpose. Now, this table could become a guideline for us so that we don't ask any questions which is outside of the scope of the research question. By all means, what is the purpose of asking questions outside of the scope of our research, right? So therefore, it is very important because once we come up with that table, we will be able to know that our interviewee's response to each and every one of these interview questions will eventually help us to answer our research questions. I also advise my students to try and have a sequence to your questions or topics by grouping them in a theme that will follow a logical sequence. Now, this is rightly so if you are clear of your research questions and objectives, and based on that questions, when you build the interview questions, probably three or four interview questions for each and every one of your research questions, then it is actually combining what are the concepts that falls within themes for each and every one of your research questions. Now, if you do this upfront, this will be quite helpful. Actually, this will be very helpful when you are preparing the analysis for your interviews later on and presenting them visually and also textually. While conducting the interviews, you need to make sure that you can easily move back and forth between questions or topic areas. Now, I would like to put a proviso to this advice. If you are conducting a more structured interviews, then this advice might not apply to you. But if you are conducting semi-structured or unstructured questions, then this applies very much to you because the questions that you ask will be very flexible, and by applying this advice, your interviewees may naturally move on to another subject, and you will be able to be flexible that not necessarily you will follow the sequence of your questions, but instead you will be able to um, uh, fit in whatever information that your interviewers tell you, and you will put them into your table of interview questions and also possible codes. Another advice that I always tell my students is to make sure that your questions are clear and easy to understand. You should be using short sentences, not including any legal jargons or technical or academic languages, unless you are sure that your interviewee will understand what you mean. We do not want to ask them technical or academic questions, uh, because otherwise they will come back to us and it will hamper their willingness to be sharing more information with us. Right, this is another tip that I always share is try not to ask leading questions. When you ask leading questions, the answers will be close-ended response from your interviewees. When you ask open-ended questions, you will be making sure that your interviewees are free to give their own honest answers by using their own words, their own terminologies within their own perception and understanding, which later on will lead you to come up with the interpretation or perception or your understanding to what he or she says. Okay, now by applying this advice, you will actually potentially get thicker and richer data for analysis purposes. Okay, all right, I think that's about it. I wish to thank you for your kind attention in viewing and listening to my short video. Please visit our website at qualitative.com for more interesting and informative sharing. Okay,